Seems fair to me. Fair decision. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.
So that'll save you a fortune.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. Great to have you with us, and thanks to our friends at the Gatesworth for making this program possible, as you do every week. Let's meet the panelists around the big table for this edition, starting with the media veteran herself. There she is, Wendy Weiss, along with Mr. Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and Ray Hartman from St. Louis Magazine, Mr. Alvin Reed from the St. Louis American, STLmag.com. And before we get to the topics tonight, just a quick word, our condolences and thoughts to the Dames family after a great member of the journalistic community in St. Louis passed away this morning. Joan Foster Dames, longtime editor and columnist for the Globe-Democrat and the Post-Dispatch, passed away. And she really had a wonderful style attending the fundraisers, giving credit to people who are raising money for this town, and she's going to be missed.
She's a wonderful
Very
person.
much.
Just a wonderful person.
She was travel editor as well.
She was indeed, yes. So, all right.
Great lady.
We lost a good one. Wendy, I want to talk to you about Donald Trump. The President of the United States was in Granite City today, and he was touting tariffs and saying that the economy is strong, and there's nowhere stronger right now than Granite City Steel, which is bringing back 800 jobs. And I know he's controversial, but I will say on this point, I don't see how people are going to be able to run against him, at least in this area, when it comes to the economy. On that point, don't you have to give it to him with the low unemployment rate, with the unemployment benefits, people collecting them, that's going down. You have record numbers.
It was up today, slightly.
Oh, people collecting unemployment benefits?
Yeah, slightly, but just for the month, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I understood that it was the lowest in 49 years 2 weeks ago.
It has been.
Yeah, so overall, can you run against Trump on the economy?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because even the people who are being impacted by the tariffs and ultimately will be impacted even more than they already have been by the tariffs. He was in Iowa before he was in Granite City earlier today saying, please be patient. You voted for me because I decided that we were going to stop kicking the can down the road, essentially. And there is going to be some short-term pain for long-term gain. And, we'll see in the midterms, the last couple of people who have received his endorsements have been doing pretty well. So, and then the GDP number tomorrow, if that comes out as expected, most of the economists are saying 4.1, which is the closest that we've been since 2014 to anything over 5. Then it's going to be virtually impossible to compete with him economically, I think.
I think it's less clear than that. I think in this environment, nobody knows, almost anything you know is wrong from the past. In this, let's just take in Missouri, say it's Claire McCaskill's race. The cake is baked for 40% on either side, or whatever number it is. The Trump base is going to support him no matter what. The people that despise Donald Trump are going to oppose him, are going to be on Claire's side no matter what. So what you're talking about is a battle for the folks in the center. And it's actually, the election is about a relatively small number of folks. And for that group of people, I don't think you should assume, one way or the other, that that group of people is necessarily going to think that the tariffs aren't emblematic of a real problem. And the problem isn't so much the economics of it, which is part of it, but is the lack of just normalcy and sanity in the way our government is being run by Donald Trump.
Well, if you believe, as many people do, Ray, that he is sort of playing chicken, he had some success earlier this week at the White House with the European Commission and the European Union, and going for zero tariffs and zero subsidies, and that was a pretty decent meeting.
As I say, different people have a different view of it, but it's going to be those folks in the center. I don't agree. I think that attacking our friends and
this wasn't NATO.
I don't know much about the economics of the international thing, but I think you're wrong, Ray, about this is really just for this 20% in the middle. It's really about who can get their base to turn out.
Well, there's that.
I mean,
understand that.
that's I think going to be what wins or loses the Senate race.
I don't know. For 8
don't know.
years, as the economy improved, nothing that the previous president could do was right. So maybe that was the base against the base. All right. So I'm kind of with Ray, and we'll see. I will say this, that $12 billion is going to go to farmers because the tariffs are hurting them. So basically, you 500 or you 800 folks, and God bless the 800 people that are back to work. That's very important, and that's good for our region. That's good for the country. Somebody's paying for that, and that's us.
and so
Because
there are-
this tariff-created situation that we have to find money to give to the farmers. Whose money is it? Well, it's our money. So
And people in the suburbs might not care for that.
But see,
okay?
here's the whole thing. I think you
The
illustrated
GM
too.
bailout was
You know,
also our money, right?
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
and so-
But
I totally agree with you. You know, when Obama was doing well, people on the right wouldn't give him any benefit of the doubt or any credit for anything. And that's what the other side is doing now with Trump. And I'm just saying, you look at some of the numbers out there, you know, they're quite good, and
right,
they
and
are
I'm
what
not,
they
look,
are.
I'm not hating on him
Yeah.
for that.
All right, now, real tragedy this week. A week ago, Alvin, in Branson at Table Rock Lake, when a duck boat went down into the water and 17 people perished, and many of them from the same family. It's just terrible. You think the days of duck boats are over in this country, or at least in Branson?
Well, I'll put it this way. It's kind of like if something happens to a particular type of plane, maybe more than once or something like that, they ground them all and say, every one of them's got to be looked at. Well, you have to do that with every duck boat in the country. And it'll take a while for the investigation to be concluded, but I still go back to the morning of this tragedy. They were saying that a really bad storm is probably going to be coming through here later this afternoon. And then even up to a half hour before they actually hit the water, it was saying like there's a bad storm coming here with up to 70-mile-per-hour winds. I think this was the negligence. We can go into the life jacket situation, and we go into all that. But I think the tragedy is that some foresight was not used. And I'm not condemning anybody or anything. I'm just saying that when the final report comes out, we'll learn. But I still think it's
So you're saying it's not the boat, it's the operator. But I'm saying, you look at that boat, it's got a roof, it's tough to get out of it, especially when those windows are closed and there's no escape route from the back. And
I think the hard part here is going to be trying to pinpoint fewer than 5 or 6 reasons
Yeah, good
why
point.
this was just the confluence of you had the natural disaster in the form of the hurricane strength winds, you had human error just off the charts. When the Kansas City Star or the LA Times talking about the fact that the man who was designing these boats didn't have an engineering degree. I mean, if that's not criminally liable, I don't know what is. And then if they are able to find that, in the words of the survivor, Tia Coleman, of that one family, she and her nephew only, that they were told that they wouldn't need life jackets, there's just too much culpability to go around, in my opinion.
And loss of life is one that need be examined for what it is before you even get into civil liability and all that. And once that plays out, I think like you said, I think there'll be multiple reasons for this. Going back to what you said, Charlie, yeah, every last duck boat in America should be inspected, and then somebody needs to decide, should these things even be on the water?
all right, Ray, I want to ask you about Uber. You've been no fan of Uber through the years. You basically have challenged how this kind of like Wild West transportation form is allowed to go on, while traditional livery service, cabs and limousines have been heavily regulated. And so you've kind of waved the cautionary flag about Uber, but I don't think you ever anticipated what happened over the last couple of months when a guy out of Florissant, over 100 rides, had been live streaming the conversations of his passengers so that people at home on a Saturday or Friday night could comment about the beauty of the passengers or how drunk they were or what they were saying about their boss or their families. And this was all going on the internet. People all over the world could be commenting on the charges who are in this Uber vehicle in St. Louis.
It's horrendous. First of all, I don't think it's anything to do with Uber. It doesn't. I mean, this could happen just as easily in a cab. My whole point about Uber has always been to have a level playing field, and I still believe that. But this has nothing to do with Uber. I mean, it could have just been a taxi. It could have been anybody doing it. The point is it's horrendous. It absolutely should be outlawed. My guess is that it is what he did. I don't know that there's any specific law against what he did, but it's sure. You
Not in Missouri, but there
you
should
talk
be.
about something where the legislature needs to look at it right away, and we need probably congressionally look at that. This is a horrible violation of the privacy of these passengers.
I hope that the people sue him. And it seems like a civil suit, maybe that's where this should be. You know, because when you get in a vehicle, you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and the idea that he's going to tape it and be streaming it live, it's awful, and I think they should sue him.
and they
And
might be able
making
to.
money off of it. That's the
Right.
incredible thing. I mean, it's bad enough that he's just violating your privacy. People who are trying to do the responsible thing, if they have been out and they are a little under the weather, or they've been overserved themselves, by their own hand, then they don't need to be held up for ridicule or possible professional.
Well, no kidding, but I disagree with Ray. I think Uber is somewhat responsible because when Aaron Heffernan, the intrepid reporter from the Post-Dispatch, contacted Uber, they said, no problem, it's not against the law. And they saw nothing wrong.
Until they
with
probably
one of
heard
their,
from a couple of
because
attorneys.
This is the attitude they have. We are disruptors. Get used to it. We're here. We're doing
That's
things
not
our
the latest.
way.
He is no longer associated with
Right,
Lyft.
but
he
I'm
is
telling-
no longer associated
once
with
it became
Uber.
public, once when she was calling them just as Aaron, they didn't care at all. They didn't care. Then when it became on the front page of the Post-Dispatch and online,
Well, what else
then
is
they
there?
That's
decided to
human
suspend the
nature,
guy.
Charlie.
all I'm
That's,
saying.
that's
No,
every
no,
story.
What a responsible company would have done is said, are you kidding me? One of our drivers is live streaming the passengers. We're going to suspend his Uber permit immediately.
Well, I mean, come on, Charlie.
And that's what
how
they
many
did.
different businesses, the first reaction?
Everyone.
Oh, wait. How many? I'll just start with one. Papa John's didn't do nothing wrong. Next thing you know, Papa John's wasn't on the
He's
board
not
of his
the
own
Papa
company.
anymore.
Right. He ain't the
Yeah.
Papa. Hey, everybody does that. That first reaction is, nothing to see here. And then somebody sits down 8 hours later and says, like, oh, there's
Hold
a
on.
whole lot to see here. You're
Yeah.
resigning. I'm not mad at
And
Uber.
Charlie,
for
to your-
that,
I
right?
did not say Uber was not an arrogant company. It is, but all I was saying was this could have happened in a taxi. So it's not. It's
And
not
has.
the genre of
Yeah.
ride sharing that's at fault here. I think Uber has historically been among the most arrogant companies in the country. But that's
Well-
and Alvin's point is right though.
But you
that-
know what? It
that's
didn't
how
happen
all
at taxi.
arrogant companies.
Of all
ran.
these years, it hasn't happened.
Well,
and
but it
you know
could.
what?
I mean,
It could still
it could
happen
have.
tomorrow because it's not against the law. And so
Right.
It better
I should
be
think
against
it's
the law.
It was a great story, wasn't it? And
It was.
the way the reporter
Oh.
ended it with that guy wanting, don't use my
Don't
last
use
name.
my name.
There's
nuts
no
out there.
hypocrisy
Privacy
there.
issue.
Right. I mean, it was just
Right.
terrific.
Now,
crazy.
it
Good
didn't
for
happen
Aaron.
here, but it was either Uber or Lyft told the women to get out of the cab because they kissed in the backseat of his cab. Now, if you read the comments on that, the majority of them said he had every right to do that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just saying that Uber driver decides I'm not going to have that in my cab, and everybody came to
His defense.
His defense, and now it's kind of like Uber driver had live stream going on where I could have been talking about my shopping list and everybody's aghast. So Uber's Uber.
Or
I
your
don't blame
taxes,
them.
or your marriage, or
true.
your
But what-
in-laws.
my point
But you
is that Uber's Uber. I don't blame them for this, but for the guy's behavior or gal's behavior that put the two
but you know
ladies
what?
out. I don't blame them
Well,
because
but I will say Uber needs, but in addition to having legislation on this, Uber should have a policy right away that means says
I'm sure
you-
they do now,
If
yeah.
they should have a policy that says you do this once and you're never coming near.
Come on.
another-
But let's
Yeah,
admit it, they don't vet their drivers very well.
No,
They
but that's
don't
one of my.
vet them at all.
Well, no, that was one of my points. But you still can't say that it happened because it's
Well,
right.
And this guy is looking-
I agree.
What
They
would
don't.
vetting this driver have
I
done
don't know that-
if he
yeah.
had just a
I don't know.
picture perfect record, but then he did
Well,
that.
he just graduated from
Yeah.
the police academy,
Yeah,
right?
looking
The
for
police
a
right.
career in
academy.
law
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah, I don't
Right.
think this is. the
He would have been
example
an
of that.
Uber driver.
Is he going to live stream his arrest from the squad car? Was that the
He'll
goal?
enjoy wearing a body cam.
Amazing.
Alvin, I want to ask you about the Port Authority, which is actually a governmental body in St. Louis County that was created after we got a casino in Limay. And originally the money that the casino generated for the county went through the Port Authority to Limay. And now it goes all over greater St. Louis County. And the county council members want to talk to the members of the Port Authority. And they asked them to appear at a meeting, and they didn't. They did not show up whatsoever. And so now the Port Authority says, well, we're going to try and subpoena these people because a lot of money is being spent, and we kind of control the purse strings, but we've got no say in this. And it's kind of gotten actually very unusual this past week, where it almost seems like, I'm not exactly sure what kind of government we have in St. Louis County. What do you make of this?
Well, this is a true story. You know, when I first got back to St. Louis, I worked for RCGA. And I kind of had to find out on my own because I was really embarrassed to ask because some people were coming over, like, from the Port Authority. And I had to, I was like, where's the port? I know I've been gone a long time, but we built a port. I'm serious. I really thought, like, where's the port? And where the ship? You know, it's like, oh, no, it's got to do with the
cruise
boat.
ships.
Yeah, I'm thinking, where am I missing something? It's like, no, that 2 feet of water that the casino sits on that nobody ever sees, that made it a port, blah, blah, blah. That's why we have Port Authority. All right. So, but these people are responsible to county taxpayers, and once summoned to come down, hey, we need to talk to you about what's going on over there, and to not show up, well, you know, the county executive doesn't show up for the council meetings. Maybe they said, well, so why should I? No, they need to be held to task. In any way you could get them in there, maybe if it's just threatening the job or whatever, they need to come down. You can just plead the fifth, say nothing to see here, whatever, but you got to show up. I mean, who said it? Half a life is showing up.
Woody Allen.
Mickey
Woody
Mantle.
Allen.
Mickey Mantle, too.
Yeah, he was drunk half the time, but but yeah, you got to show up. You're not upholding your responsibility to the county taxpayer by dodging and ducking.
I think they should have shown up, although in the same story, 2 of the members of the county council, one at the Economic Development Partnership manages the Port Authority, and they made some completely anonymous, scurrilous argument that the executive director of the partnership is being followed and something
the
about
feds.
the feds and with anonymous sources. I thought that was, it kind of showed there's a lot of malice involved on both sides. It just wasn't
Well,
that was
I thought,
unacceptable.
Ray, I agree that it was irresponsible to say that this woman is being investigated by the feds. I thought, with nothing to back it up, irresponsible. But I'm with Alvin all the way on the people that work at the Port Authority. They're dealing with public money, and if the county council says we have questions, you gotta show up.
Yeah.
I
Uber
mean, this
if
is
you have
crazy.
to, but get there.
Good line.
Well, what do you make of if, Bill, you've been in journalism for many years,
Many, many years. John.
2 members of the board, Ernie Trachis and Sam Page, made these allegations that Sheila Sweeney was being followed by the FBI, but they didn't back it up with any sources, but they said it in an open meeting. Now, some people in the media think you shouldn't report that, and yet it was said by a governmental body in open session. Where do you come down on this?
I thought that Post-Dispatch made the right call with Jeremy Kohler, that when you have 2 officials claiming that the feds are investigating a 3rd official, I think that you have to say it.
I agree.
But you have to
and I know
acknowledge
that
that
people are trying to weasel around and saying that,
Right.
you know, not naming names. I think that Jeremy Kohler and the Post-Dispatch did the right thing.
I agree
while
with that.
while acknowledging that that's pretty poor form to not have any more to the story, you know, for Page and Trachis to,
Well, and
say that kind of
And it
thing.
should be followed up upon.
Oh yeah.
I agree with Bill, but in a strange way, this story just almost becomes back on Trachis and Page more
Sure.
than anybody. I mean, and
Absolutely.
I
It
think
does.
Sheila Sweeney
Unless
was-
she actually was followed by FBI
but,
agents.
But I think
But they
her
have
name,
to.
she did nothing to have her name dragged around in this.
Well, it kind of reminds us of Charlie Dooley, who was the county executive. People said the FBI is investigating him, and then
Yeah.
you know the FBI doesn't confirm or deny an investigation. Turns out they
that's fair.
they weren't.
That's
so
fair.
you know it sounds like it's what happened 4 years ago. Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about Friendship Village. It's a nursing home and presumably a real good one. A couple of women who are lesbians wanted to be residents there, but according to Friendship Village's guidelines, they follow biblical principles, and they said because the 2 women are married, and that violates the religious precepts of the organization, the women cannot live there. So the women are suing. How do you come down on this one?
Well, I favor the women. You know, I tried the religious liberty on the bakery case if the baker doesn't want to make a wedding cake. But it just seems like there's the gay rights that are being squeezed at. And I think that if this thing goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it's likely to, I think the Supreme Court will agree that yes, you can, if your religion bothers you, gay marriage, then you can do this. And I think it's the wrong way to go.
I just found it interesting that, and I don't know this for a fact, but that if the two women just weren't married and were living together, then it would be acceptable. And I come from a time where, like, you're supposed to be married if you live together. The dichotomy's changed.
You're saying the fact that that they didn't actually have to offer up an explanation about the relationship?
Yes, that too. But I'm just saying that at 57, we'll be
Sure,
58.
when
we were kids, the idea of living in sin was worse than it's kind of like not, the whole married. Now, you throw the gay question into it. Well, we would rather have you just living together than actually declaring that you were married.
The only thing that I thought was a little suspicious or maybe even borderline disingenuous was when the couple said they were stunned by the reaction to the application when it's right there on the website. I mean, it's right there on the website. So I don't know if this was something, if this is a point that, I'm not saying that they deliberately were involved in Friendship Village because they put down a $2,000 deposit in good faith. But to say you're stunned when the biblical foundation for the community is right there on the website, it doesn't make sense.
Well, the story did say that they'd asked somebody else at a different place, is it going to be a problem, and the person was taken aback. Of course not. So, I mean, I could see where...
But then why wouldn't you want to, I mean, clearly these are
I
two
could see where
smart
people
women
might
who...
think that the culture had changed.
Right, and I think this is bigotry in the name of religion. It doesn't indict people who have religious views or whatever.
That's because you're not religious.
That's not true, but
yeah, by your own admission.
No,
By
I'm
your own
religious in
admission.
my own religion. I'm saying this is, I kind of take exception to that, but
That's what you've always said,
I'm not
Ray.
saying I'm not religious. I'm Jewish. I'm religious in the Jewish faith. My point is that I think this is bigotry in the name of religion, is what I think it is.
Yeah, but what if you
And
what if you have a group of conservative Christians and one of their precepts is that gay marriage is not allowable? Should they be able to form a nursing home and live together without gays and lesbians? Personally,
No.
The lesbians could live next door. They could live in our house. I don't care. That's fine with me. But, I don't have those religious views.
I think it's an argument for why there have been efforts which have failed in Missouri that should succeed to make someone's orientation a protected class.
But the whole
And I
point,
think, I understand
the whole
different
point
people
of
think
Colorado, the whole point of Colorado and the recent court decision was that was the Colorado Equal Rights Commission. The Supreme Court found that the Equal Rights Commission in the state of Colorado overstepped.
Yes, right, you're
Sorry.
right. Okay, Wendy, I want to ask you about the World Naked Bike Ride, the 11th annual in St. Louis, and apparently for 13 miles, people just, rode around, walked around, went into bars and restaurants in the all together, as they say. Now, some people go to jail for flashing. Some people run across the Busch Stadium field and they're arrested. And in fact, if you walk naked down the street, you might be considered a sexual offender and on that list for the rest of your life. No kidding. If you urinate in public. But here, the police look the other way. Do you see any problems with that?
They look the other way. There's a joke there, but I'm not going to make it because I would never in a billion years.
Look the other way.
I would. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe some of the photographs that I was seeing online. But yeah, I think it's completely hypocritical.
Seeing them repeatedly, Wendy?
Looking at them repeatedly, I was like, But no, I think that if you have, and I hate to pull the family card out, but if the family is la 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 la, wow, coming up upon this particular gathering. There used to be, or I think there might still be, a nudist encampment out in some county. Shut up, Bill. But no, there was a nudist camp, or an armed encampment, or a legged encampment.
Well, you know what you're getting there.
2 weeks in, 2 weeks in February, you can run around topless all around Soulard. Now, I know people going down there expect to kind of get a little show, all right? But for 2 weeks in February, everybody looks the other way, just like on this.
Yeah,
and remember
this is
we were
not
talking
topless.
about we were talking about there were too many 5Ks in downtown St. Louis and said we need as much as we can get. Listen, we need every event we can get. This is the 11th year. We ought to be trying to get it to 25 years. We ought to be biking, swimming, paratrooping,
Okay,
whatever.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just don't arrest the guy
Don't
who's
arrest
walking
the
down the
guy-
street
That's
by the
different.
red box
That's
and
Or the
different.
guy
whistling.
that's
Two different
dancing,
things.
or
Two
different
the
things.
guy that's dancing in the McDonald's ladies' room,
Trespass.
and he's in the all
Criminal
together.
trespass.
There's a tip. Look, at everybody. First of all, I am. I don't know.
Did
what
you
it-
almost say tit for
I
tat?
don't- No, I did not say.
Okay.
I said I was going to say I'm altogether.
This is
fine
PBS,
with it.
folks.
I didn't say anything
It's that-
about
that's
that.
What do you got to
Sorry,
say,
that's
Ray? You
not-
got 30 seconds.
I think this is no harm, no foul. I don't think everybody knows what the event is. I can't see any great harm that's going to come.
Then they
But
should,
exactly
they should
right,
put up
right.
those electric
And it's got
signs,
nothing
those
to do
electronic
with
signs that
decency.
say naked people up ahead,
You know what?
riding
I mean,
water
it's
bikes
totally-
and
Wendy's
bicycles.
right, because some
and
families
Segways.
were going to getting haircuts or staying in
And
hotels nearby,
Charlie-
and they were surprised by it.
And we should
Oh,
all
yeah.
disclose that our bikes were in the shop. Okay.
Oh, I would have been
I'll tell you
arrested.
what, I'm not going to
I'm
touch a Lime bike now.
No,
That's
come
for
on.
dang
It's
sure.
really-
No.
I
All
think
right.
it's much
Hey,
ado
let's
about
go to the
nothing.
letters, and we'll find out what you had to say about last week's show. Mike Cole wrote, near the end of the Donnybrook last week, someone called in and implied that city residents don't pay trash collection. Well, that left me wondering, why and to whom am I sending in a quarterly payment for refuse collection?
That was my bad, people.
It's $14 a month for city residents, apparently. We also heard from Dave Baldwin of the Southampton area of St. Louis. Can we address the trash not being picked up or being picked up too often in some neighborhoods? The city needs to get its act together and get more trucks or more drivers, since we are forced to pay for trash pickup monthly. Yes, it's twice a week in the city. Barry Williams of the City of Warmth, Brentwood, wrote, I don't know why someone changed the font for the captions that appear at the bottom of the television screen during Donnybrook. There was nothing wrong with the previous font. You can write us, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street. There's that new font. St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. It could slim down a bit. Don't forget those emails, letters@ketc.org, and those tweets. Hashtag Donnybrook STL, because the founders, Bill McClellan and Ray Hartman, are going to read those for you in just a matter of moments during your turn. And we hope you stay. Don't go away. The rest of us will be back next week at this time. Have a great time.
Donnybrook is made possible through the generous support of the members of KETC.